To defeat an enemy, you must know them. Not just their battle tactics, but their history, philosophy, art. Welcome to the Chiss Ascendancy podcast.
Alrighty, we just went. Hello everyone and welcome back to...
The Chiss Ascendancy.
This is episode 52.
52, it's a great number.
It's a great number and it signifies the end of a physical year. Not a fiscal year, which is finances, but a physical year. So we've been doing this for about a year. This is our 52nd episode, and so next week we got something special planned. But this is all about the Light of the Jedi.
The Light of the Jedi.
Guys,
pretty exciting stuff.
We cranked this one out to be able to do the book review, and so we want to talk about the launching of the High Republic era. And we talked about the launch last week, but we want to specifically get into this book. And so we'll do a spoiler-free review first, and then we'll get into spoilers a little bit later. So if you haven't seen, LOL. If you haven't read The Light of the Jedi, then you're going to want to cut this off and either read it or listen to it if you're a fan of audiobooks. And if you don't plan on it, then you can just listen to the episode. And you can learn the story, which is kind of what we're doing. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do some spoiler-free stuff, and then we'll jump in. So first of all, spoiler-free review. How did you feel about The Light of the Jedi by Mr. Charles Soule?
We kind of talked about it last week a little bit, how I felt about it. But I think that it's felt the most like Legends that we've gotten under Disney.
Yeah.
So that's very exciting for me as someone who loves Legends.
Yeah.
And I love exploring new aspects of the Force, and I love just kind of pushing those boundaries, and I love good villains, and I got all those things.
Yeah, my friend Caleb King always says that the reason that Marvel makes more money, but DC, as far as one single character that's more iconic. I guess Thanos now has kind of taken a big role, but for the longest time, it was like Marvel made more money and things like that. But the most iconic villain was DC villains because of the depth of the character. And so it'd be like, oh, this is a cool bad guy for, Red Skull or whatever, which is cool. But the Joker is so iconic because he's just that more of an iconic villain. He's got that depth. He's got that backstory. And so going into this, we were very nervous about, can they create a villain that that we'll be intrigued about, that'll push the story? And they really did. I think they did a good job. Mm-hmm. So as you can see, we're not in our normal studio. Just once we pulled out all the stops, and it's been kind of a pain, but we're doing it. And so I appreciate Samuel working with me on this. This is the Star Wars room at my house, and so we're not going to give you a whole tour, but we thought it'd be cool to have this in the background for one episode before we. This is kind of like a penultimate episode since it's our 52nd. So I agree. I think that it felt a lot like Legends, which, like you said, is a huge plus for me. There was good Legends and there was bad Legends, but similar to Star Wars Rebels, the highs were very high. And so I felt like, you have some really good stuff in canon so far that Disney's, helped produce, and Star Wars Books has helped produce. Mm-hmm. But, Heir to the Empire, Darth Bane trilogy, stuff like that, that's peak Star Wars literature, in my opinion. And it really felt like we were getting back to that style. Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst Star Wars book you've ever read, and 10 being Darth Bane Path of Destruction, where do you rank this one?
The worst Star Wars book I've ever read.
I'm looking around at my bookshelves. Okay. The one you always make fun of is the Bounty Hunter Wars.
Oh yeah.
I like them, but they are kind of cornier sometimes.
Okay.
It's Boba Fett saying,
I'm gonna give it like a 9.5.
"Ooh, 9.5 out of 10. Wow.
High praise from me.
That's very high.
Yeah.
That's very high.
Very high.
To quote K2SO. I don't know if I can go that high. Oh, man.
I can.
But here's the thing. The thing that really, not that it surprises me, but the thing that makes me really take a step back and think about the greatness of this book is that you are literally in the middle of finishing re-listening to the Heir to the Empire trilogy, which is,
You know,
The Godfather.
I've got to say,
Uh-oh.
don't hang me.
Here we go.
I
Hot takes.
like Thrawn as he's reinvented more than I like original Thrawn. Having read them all,
Oh, really?
having read the new stuff recently,
Uh-huh.
and also like now rereading The Heir to the Empire,
Okay.
I think I like Thrawn better.
We're trying to keep this under 45 minutes, so I'm not going to ask you why. Give me a quick explanation of what that means.
I think he's just a more unique villain.
Yeah.
Under his reinvention.
Well, he's more well-rounded for sure.
Yeah, he's more, I don't know, to use a less stupid word, but villainy in the original ones. You know what I mean? He's got to have that edge. And he's still, I don't know, I think he's more easily duped. And I think he's a little bit less in control in Heir to the Empire.
Interesting.
I think he's a little bit cleverer, even though he has like a more obvious flaw under the new invention, which would be his political ineptitude, which is somehow very important.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because there's somebody that's, love him or hate him, Donald Trump's completely politically inept, and he was the president. It's just kind of funny how, like, it doesn't really hold you back as much as it's written to seem to hold Thrawn back.
I mean, he still made Grand Admiral, so.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, your rating.
Man. Okay, I would probably say an 8. 8.5. 8.5.
It's not good enough. It's a B+. plus.
It's really, really good. I guess I can give it a 9. I can't give it a 9.5 because I think about this, okay? Here's I'll tell you why.
It's not even like a half a point lesser than Path of Destruction.
What I'm saying is Path of Destruction is a straight up 10.
Yeah.
So,
But here's the thing. He had a lot less to do. Drew Karpyshyn had a lot less to do in Path of Destruction. He had to set up one ball-in character, and then everybody else revolved around him.
yeah.
Charles Soule had to set up a lot.
There is a lot of characters that I like about this story.
And he handled them so well.
That's
The
true.
villains are good villains. There's like the ones you wish you could strangle. There's the ones that are brilliant. They're the ones that are withheld and then gloriously revealed. I don't know. I think he did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Because he had so much conceptually to unravel. You know what I mean? I think it was
But also
masterfully
hold
done.
back.
Exactly.
Okay, but think about this. I think about... Oh, dadgummit. It's also hard because when I think about books, there's some of the best books are in a series. So it's easy for me to be like, yeah, but have you read Star Wars Betrayal? And I'm thinking of 1 through 9 of that series. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's pretty high. It's pretty good. I can see where you give it a 9.5. I'm going to give it a 9 simply because it's not as good as Path of Destruction.
Yeah.
And it's not...
Which is a 10, though. So
Correct. But it's not better to me than, for instance... okay, what's Plagueis for you?
like a 9.
So you think that Light of the Jedi was better than Plagueis?
Here's the thing. I think that Plagueis is very similar to...
Darth Bane?
Yeah.
I think that Charles Soule did a lot of work.
I would have liked Plagueis more if it had focused less on Sheev. I understand why it focuses so much on Sheev, but I think what's so beautiful about Path of Destruction to me is I love a book that has one storyline that's really good as opposed to like 4 or 5 storylines that are okay and you're jumping between those
That's
things.
true. This has multiple storylines and they're all really good.
They're all really well done.
Okay, whatever. 9.5. It's pretty good. The thing is, I guess...
I've had a little time to process it too. You literally just finished it. I've been sitting on it for like a day.
That's true. I want to say that it's really, really good. And I think that even if I left it at a 9, it will go up as more product comes out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm gonna start A Test of Courage tomorrow.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I will too. Do you got the audiobook?
Yeah, it's only like 4.5 hours.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
It's a little read.
Okay, so 1 through 10, so somewhere between 9 and 9.5 for both of us. What are books that it reminds you of from Legends?
It kind of, I don't know, it just feels Legends familiar, and yet it's very unique.
Yeah. Okay, so in the Legacy of the Force series, which you're also reading, there are multiple villains.
You know, it does feel really similar to Heir to the Empire. A little bit.
Yeah. I think the reason that I prefer, this is getting back on Thrawn, but the reason that I think I might prefer Thrawn from the old stuff is because I prefer the old books more than I prefer the new books. And it's because the supporting characters are better in those books. Does that make sense?
Disagrees in Eli Vanto.
Yeah, but we didn't get Eli Vanto hardly at all.
It was a joke.
Except for the first book.
Meme. I made a meme.
The first book is
Live
really
action
good.
Meme.
Okay, like for instance, okay.
I guess like Thrawn for me is like the path of destruction, but for Thrawn, because the Heir to the Empire series focuses like 30% on Thrawn, if that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that
whereas
I guess
the new
I
Thrawn
wish
books are like,
you know what I haven't got
5% Thrawn.
What I'm waiting on, which we will get inevitably. This is kind of this kind of goes into news a little bit, but supposedly it hasn't come out from like Collider or like officially from Star Wars or anything, but word on the interwebs is that Lars Mikkelsen has officially signed on to play Thrawn in the Ahsoka live action series.
Yeah.
And the talk is that he signed on for that contract, but that he'll be in multiple shows. So like I think he'll be in The Mandalorian, things like that.
Yeah.
He's basically the Thanos of the Disney Plus Star Wars universe.
Yeah,
is what I've heard.
He's a little brilliant. But this is the Thanos that we're getting under the new regime. You dig?
What do you mean?
Like it's the Thrawn that we have now under canon.
Yeah. Okay, so the reason that I'm waiting anxiously
we'll have to talk about this another time. We've got so much to
cover. For Thrawn to be in his element. We still haven't seen him in his element yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, not on the screen.
Well, like, okay, the funnest ride is the self-titled Thrawn novel where you see him getting to be his own self.
Yeah.
And I'm just so sick of the politics.
Yeah. I mean, he's shredding. I want to see where Thrawn has a little bit more dominance in the Chiss Ascendancy.
Yeah.
For the new book coming out.
I just want to see him like not have to worry about all the bull crap. And there's like no politics involved in the Heir to the Empire trilogy, and he's large and in charge, and it's more fun to watch.
I can appreciate that. I think they just...
If we got a whole book of that guy, that would be another level. And we will.
I don't know. I kind of like the gentlemanly nature of the softer edges Thrawn.
No, that's fine. I just want a book where he's that guy, but he has no leash.
Yeah, that's fine. I get that.
Okay, so it did remind you of Heir to the Empire.
Yeah, I think it's just the feel of... I don't know, there's just... And you know what?
I'm going to say it.
I have to finish the sentence and I'm going to start. I'm going to do it here soon. I think that as far as for what it does for the Force, it did way more for the Force and the Jedi than most of what I've read in Legends.
Yeah, this...
it really explores the boundaries of the light side of the Force, and I think the only books that really do that in Legends, for the most part, I haven't finished the other series, but it's mostly dark side.
Right. Well, that's what sells.
Yeah.
So to take the Jedi and go, hey, you don't know the Jedi.
Yeah.
You know, for hardcore fans like us, we're like, well, what are you doing here? But then we read it and we were like, all right, Charles, you're right. You knew him. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the Darth Revans, the Darth Malgus, the Darth Banes.
I'm just reading about what they're doing, and I'm like, continue.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's fun.
I'm all the way here for it. Dude.
Yeah, it's fun to root for the Jedi.
It's cool to be like, okay. In books, like 80% of the time, am rooting for the villain.
Right.
So it's cool to be excited about the good guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't get that. I'm very rarely excited for the good guy.
Right. Well, even like The Mandalorian, which is like the best thing that Disney Star Wars has done, is a bad guy that's turning good.
Yeah.
It's not straight up, here's a good guy, root for him,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And everybody loves a villain. Everybody loves, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So these are characters that the villain is very compelling,
Mm-hmm.
but the good guys are really cool. And like you said, now that you say it, there was a lot of character development.
There was a lot of character
people.
development for like, we got, what, like 15 or 16 different Jedi that we talked about, and I'm still like emotionally attached to all of them. We had to trim off the list the ones we were just going to talk about because there would be too many.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so at this point, we're about 15 minutes in. So let's go ahead and just say, if you haven't read the book and if you plan to read it or listen to it, you need to spread your wings and fly from this video and come back later. We want you to watch our in-depth spoiler-filled review, but this is your warning. I'm dragging this out so you can get off of here. You've been warned.
It's a warning.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about the freaking Force abilities that these Jedi have,
Oh my
because
God.
it's off the charts.
Dude, it is sensational.
Dude, it's so it's amazing because
Dude, I don't even know
I
which
just
one to
feel like the
pick
Jedi
first.
are overwhelmed in everything I see.
Yes.
And then, like, okay, even the great Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, he's finally force projecting, and we're like, what a bad son of a gun. And then you look at him, and he looks like he's in the microwave. And he's like, oh! Like, he's crapping his pants up there.
Well, even the Luke Skywalker that we have in Heir to the Empire, he's like, can I send somebody on this planet?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's still stretching his legs. He's still figuring out his Jedi abilities. And
Right.
obviously he gets there. But
Right. Well, the thing is, for Luke,
he's like the only
it's a
Jedi we ever see push the boundaries.
Yeah, it's a rediscovery of what it means to be a Jedi, especially in Heir to the Empire before
Right.
the prequels were announced. And so it's like, you know, you have weird stuff in Heir to the Empire, weird according to what we know now, but it's like, Ben couldn't be there anymore because he had to die all the way. And now we know the Cosmic Force is a thing.
Yeah.
Qui-Gon's like, what? But yeah, so it's funny because Luke is having to rediscover things, especially in the Heir to the Empire books, because there is no other master. There is no other teacher.
Yeah.
And these guys, it's peak Jedi. And so it's, okay, go ahead and talk about Loden a little bit.
Okay, real quick. Can we talk about how there's like 3 Grandmaster Jedis right now?
Yeah, so you have Yoda and another guy.
And then another guy that was mentioned in passing. I can't remember the name.
Oh,
There was like a third Grandmaster Jedi.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Not the one that came with Yoda to the Starlight Beacon to appoint Avar Kriss. Sorry, big spoiler. We talked about it a little bit last week, I think, in the
comics.
In the comic. That one's not as big of a reveal.
Okay.
But I think there were 3 Grandmaster Jedi. I think it seems less of a position and more of just like a very difficult to attain rank.
Oh.
Because Yoda is Grandmaster and he's not even on the council right now.
Correct. Well, he's on sabbatical.
Right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't... He took a Mon Cal. First Mon Cal Jedi I think we've seen in canon.
Nope. Clone Wars.
Oh, yeah. F that guy. Anyway.
This guy's the first good Mon Cal Jedi we've seen. Yeah. Well, you're reading Legacy of the Force. You'll get there.
Canon, I said. But yeah, so... Anyway, it's a rare species to be on the Jedi Council. And so, yeah, Yoda chooses somebody he's on sabbatical. He's running around the galaxy with
very
younglings.
cool.
I thought it was cool, and I think it was a smart move because it's just Yoda's one of those dominant characters. Everybody wants to see him.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool that he's on sabbatical, and I think it's cool that he gets to appoint who's in his chair.
Yeah. I also thought it was cool that from however hundreds of light years away, he was still joining in and moving an object via the Force. That's freaking sick. I thought it was cool that...
Yeah, I will never watch the prequels the same ever again.
Right? What's his name? The older Master Jedi.
Oh, you're thinking of
Porter Engle.
Porter Engle.
I thought it was cool how much he referenced the luminous beings thing. And now we wonder maybe if Yoda picked that up from him, because Porter Engle was 300 years old at this point. It's possible that Yoda picked up a thing or two from him.
Yeah, so if Yoda dies at 900, and this is, let's say, 250 years before that, he's, 650 years old. But
I mean, he's still going to be like twice the guy's age, but you learn something from somebody in 300 years.
But it seems like Porter Engle was kind of like the Qui-Gon of this book.
He seems like he was a bad man.
Well, it talks about he was called the Sword of something.
Yeah.
And he didn't like being called that, and he had removed himself from...
I think he was just like, maybe like the martial expert at the time.
Yeah. Well, okay, so Loden Greatstorm is the Jedi that we probably get the most action out of.
I don't know. There's a lot of Avar, Chris.
I'm saying like fighting action.
Yeah.
She's more of like a... Please extend your
She's
hands
still
this
doing
way
really
as we
freaking
pray.
cool stuff, though.
No, I'm saying just fighting wise.
Yeah.
We get the most out of Loden.
Yeah, no, Loden is...
But there's this moment
he's my
where
first love.
Loden's fighting and Master Angle steps in and Loden's Padawan is like, this guy was on another level. He thought Master Loden was good.
Yeah.
But this guy was on a whole other level to Master Loden.
Well, and, I think Loden's just a Jedi Knight at this point.
Yes.
And so Loden is...
which goes to show you how powerful Jedi Knights were at the time.
Right.
Because he was doing stuff and I was like, how is this guy not a master?
Right, he was doing some Jedi Master caliber
Which
stuff.
also
dude.
makes me super duper excited for when we finally get to see a Skier do things, because he is a Jedi Master.
He is a Jedi Master. I'm going to see what he's going to do out there, all gimpy.
Poor guy got his freaking arm blown off.
Yeah. I think it was like cut off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like...
They said a sharp metal object got him at the
blasted through
joint.
his freaking canopy and his fighter.
Well, I saw a picture of him before everything dropped, and he was fighting with one arm, and I was like, no, it has to grow back. And then in the book it said
already
it would
growing
be back.
in the
And I
book.
was like, okay, good.
But yeah, no. So we have Loden Greatstorm. He's one of the more accomplished Jedi Knights I think that we're aware of. And
he's hilarious.
yeah, he's a G.
I liked when he was getting ready to fly into the Nihil's ship, and she was like, "What's your plan?" He's like, "I don't know, trust in the Force or something." He reminds me of Sergeant Doodoo from The Inspector, but like super intelligent. You know what I'm talking about?
Don't say si, say oui. Si, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
Freaking Chico.
He was like, "I will trust in the Force or something. I don't know."
Except for he's French.
Yeah, it just kind of drifted into Sergeant Doodoo there. But yeah, he's super funny. And I liked how it talked about he had kind and joyful eyes until he didn't.
Yeah, I liked that Porter appreciated Loden's sense of humor because all the Jedi were so stoic all the time.
Yeah, he said they were too serious for their own good, and Loden brought a much welcome joy with him.
Much welcome sense of humor.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Because I aspire to be that man in my circle of friends.
All right, so Buri Yaga, Wookiee Jedi.
Yeah.
Not the first one that we've seen in canon, because there was the Wookiee Padawan that we have in the Ilum story arc.
Yeah, Clone Wars.
I forget his name, but he's a Jedi apprentice. He is especially gifted in sensing the emotions of other beings.
Yeah, and there's the moment at the very beginning of the book where they're like, oh crap, all this debris flying out of space, let's just blow it away. And he has a very, very strong sense of life and emotion. And I think they're kind of hand in hand, where he feels the anxiety and the fear from, however far away. And that's when they zoom in and they're like, oh, there's people there.
Yeah.
And so he's very powerful, and he's
very powerful.
He's very powerful. He's a furry cool guy. But
Righteous furry?
What?
Righteous furry?
He was really cool.
He was cool.
There's that character at the very, very beginning of the book who gets caught basically watching Star Wars porn on the ship, Surge. And he was like, I was embarrassed, so I was going to go and put the captain on blast, and that's when I killed everyone on the ship. You could tell that he felt kind of like responsible. He didn't really know what happened. And then it was cool that Buryaga was like, he could tell. It was cool because he spoke, but then obviously they translated it.
Yeah.
And I liked how in the prequels, which is the most Jedi content we have up to this point, I guess besides Clone Wars, but that kind of counts as a prequel.
Yeah.
Everyone's, like you said, very serious. Everyone's there's
Except
just
for
so
my boy Obi-Wan.
there's so much going on that no one takes time to slow down and like ask, how are people doing?
Minus the stretch where he's completely stressed out by Anakin in episode 2.
Right. Yeah, so it was so cool because there's this moment where Bur Yaga reaches down and hugs him, and he says he just didn't understand how nobody had thought to hug the boy yet.
I thought that was sweet.
And I was like, dang.
Yeah, so we got Bur Yaga, we got Avar Kriss, who we've talked about a little bit. She's a Jedi Master, basically large and in charge for most of the book.
Yeah.
She's good to have around, mainly for the fact that she's able to kind of unite Jedi in a direction. So if there are a lot of Jedi working on something, she's able to kind of keep them on the same wavelength.
Yeah, she has a very... so it was really cool because I had never heard of this before, this book, Legends or Canon, that different Jedi feel the Force different ways.
I feel that I've definitely heard that before somewhere.
Not to this depth, though.
I'll have to find it, but I feel like I have.
Please remind me, because
Okay.
I'm drawing a blank. Just the different... Okay, like...
yeah, it's just like...
She sees it as... She's obviously, like...
Yeah, she hears it as a song.
Musically inclined as far as the Force is concerned. So, like, different people have different harmonies and different things like that. So, it's very interesting because if you're a musician or a singer or whatever, when you're in a band or you're listening to a song or you're watching someone at a concert and someone's like, you know, playing in the ging or, you know, someone's voice is off, you're like, ah.
Can't relate.
And well, it's interesting because that's kind of how it's like when someone's off balance emotionally or like, I guess, spiritually, she senses that the way that you can hear when someone's off key.
Yeah.
And we see more of that in the comic.
Yeah, so there's another Jedi Knight turned master in the book, Elzar Mann, and he kind of identifies the Force as a sea, like a big ocean, and the depths of it and the way that that relates to other people somehow.
And her. And so they kind of have a thing. But to me, it was very interesting because that was very cool. Elzar Mann was a Jedi that had stayed a knight for a really long time because the Masters could not understand the way he operated within the Force, and he seemed like a guy. He's not a weirdo and he's not cocky, but he's only
described
does
as a tinkerer.
Yeah,
with
he
the
only
Force.
he uses the Force a certain way one time.
Yeah,
as much as he can because he wants to understand more of the Force.
Which I can get behind that.
When I was reading that, I was thinking it was interesting to me that 200 years before the fall of the Jedi, there was already a sprinkling of you don't do things the way that most of us do things, so we're not sure about you, which is really has a strong hold. The dogma of Jedi, we all do this thing one way.
Yeah,
you know.
But, I mean, his curiosity about the Force led him to discover some very cool things. Like, for instance, there's a moment in the book where there's a massive supercomputer that's outside because it needs to dissipate heat, and it starts overheating, and he basically tells Avar Kriss, he's like, I've never tried this before, but the theory is sound. And essentially he
changes the weather pattern.
He manipulated the water in the atmosphere to make it rain. That's freaking crazy. I've never seen anything like that outside of Path of Destruction.
Yeah, no, never. It was amazing to hear. I was listening to the book and I texted you and I was like, are they making it rain? That was really cool because it talked about how the computer was beginning to overheat and like really rapidly. And they were so close to figuring out the last puzzle piece to figure out, you know, we, as the reader, we know the Nihil are the bad guys. And there's basically like the GPS of the ship is going to tell you that it's a GPS that also has a recorder.
So the whole premise of the book is that there is a ship that's in hyperspace. It detects an anomaly, and the captain tries to avoid it, but they're moving at the speed of light or something above the speed of light, and the ship can't handle movement at that speed and rips apart. And so all the pieces of the ship are basically flying through space at the speed of light and then dropping out of hyperspace in the system and crashing into ships. They're crashing into planets, into moons. And because they're traveling
they're killing or on the course to kill billions.
Yeah, because they're traveling at the speed of light. It's not just a regular friggin' asteroid. You know what I mean? It's going to disintegrate a moon.
It's not another Happy Landing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole first,
Third.
of the book
Yeah.
is revolving around what they call the Great Disaster. And I thought it was very brilliant that different chapters would say,
45 minutes
This is
impact.
where we are. This is kind of what's going on.
Yeah, I like
This is
that.
how long to
I like
impact.
that a lot.
That was very, very cool.
It's very comicsy.
Yeah, exactly. Which is ironic because Charles Soule is a comic writer.
I don't think it's ironic. I think it's
Well, I'm just saying it's
because it is.
interesting. It's amazing because it is. But yeah, so you finally have the impact. But right before the impact is when Avar Kriss is able to unite the minds. It was
Unite the clans.
it was a very people of Earth, lend me your energy so I can create a spirit bomb to defeat Majin Buu moment.
Oh my god.
So Avar Kriss is like this with her hand up in the sky. And
that's what they're doing.
it's actually really cool because she's floating in the air and she's talking to them through the force. We will move it. We will move it. And so there's this moment, like you said, where Jedi that were in the vicinity started to faint and lose their strength and stuff like that. And then their strength and their unity in the force kind of pings other Jedi throughout the galaxy. And it talks about Yoda, wherever he was,
Yeah.
also sent his...
Jedi Masters all the way from Coruscant were lending their strength. Just incredible stuff.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about the... we got a couple more characters. We'll run through them. So we got Elzar Mann. He's a Jedi Knight / Master. We got Bel Zettifar. He's the apprentice of Loden Greatstorm.
Yeah. He's one of the main characters.
He's very cool. It's cool to see kind of... I think one of the coolest things we've gotten out of this series of books and comics is seeing the process of moving from Jedi Padawan to Jedi Knight. And we see that with Bel Zettifar a little
Bel's
bit.
thing is he's an amazing Jedi, and he needs to grow in his trusting of the Force to get to that next level.
And then we've got, obviously, Master Skier, who we've talked about a little bit. He's a Trandoshan Jedi, which is just kind of a big deal for the fact that he's a Trandoshan Jedi. And then one of the...
He had like one little piece of dialogue in the whole book, but it was great.
Yeah, it was very touching. And then we've got a Supreme Chancellor Lena So.
She seems like a really cool character.
Yeah, she's a cool character. She's very uniting.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because so much of what we see in Star Wars, anyone that's Chancellor, like, don't trust him.
Yeah. Well, and Chancellors typically are very divisive because they're either playing to one side of the aisle or the other.
Yeah.
And she's very much the opposite of that.
And yeah, she's the greatest Star Wars politician we've probably ever seen.
As far as in her genuineness of purpose.
Yeah. I don't count Leia as
or like
a politician.
Somewhere like Padme. You know what I mean? Where whatever she's doing, it's very genuine.
Yeah. So her idea
Except for she's
is
successful.
Yeah, her idea is, and this is big throughout the book, we are all the Republic.
That's sad.
That's what she wants. Yeah, that's what she wants to be remembered for. That's her legacy. Is we are all the Republic, which is what Starlight Beacon is all about. Is the Republic and the Jedi have kind of come together to create this nice Death Star. Is how you put it?
It's like the opposite of the Death Star.
Yeah, instead of a beacon of tyranny and intimidation, this is the first one they're going to try it out, but their goal is to have multiples of this all across the galaxy that help communication and travel from the inner rim all the way to the edges of the outer rim and dang near wild space to unify the Republic as one entity.
It seems like the outer rim is kind of like what wild space is in the time of the prequels. But we did finally get a more solid indication of what Starlight Beacon was to represent. It was a hospital. It was a ship repair yard. It was the Smithsonian. It had, freaking like an arboreum.
It's basically all the best things about living in the core worlds.
Well, and the outer rim as well. They had like just plants and flora and fauna from all over the outer rim.
Yeah. It was a way for, it was that first Thanksgiving dinner that brought everyone together.
I mean, it's that. It's the second biggest Jedi temple now in the galaxy.
Yep.
It's supposed to be it's made of like 19 or 13% of like this very highly conductive metal in the sense that it works as like a relay station to increase transmission speeds from the outer rim to the core. It's basically everything that the core has that the outer rim doesn't have, and it's meant to be the movement of those assets into the Outer Rim. I think there's also like it's a trade post.
Yeah.
It's like everything you would ever need.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be so massive that even the Republic's bank account felt it.
Yeah, it's big enough that they're like, we need to finish this on time. But yeah, it was a risk, but the reward was so rich, you know. And sadly, from what we know of the prequels, I don't think it really pans out. That's what it seems like. Republic credits don't work out there. We'll see.
But you have heard of me.
You have heard of me. Okay, yeah, so the Republic was really cool. It was a very small moment, but if you've read Heir to the Empire, there's a crazy moment where Luke is on Coruscant and he is looking out towards what's called the Minari Mountains.
And drinking a nice cup of hot chocolate.
Yeah.
That exotic drink that Lando introduced him to.
Exactly.
And it's very tasty.
And
drinking in his night robe.
when he's looking out
Ben.
there... All right. He's
Trying to
looking
paint a
out there.
wholesome picture here.
It's a nice picture. But he's looking out, and it was so cool to see Timothy Zahn's mind. Of course, as a reader, I'm like, it's a city. The whole thing's a city. But it was cool because they brought that back around. I thought that was a very nice thing of Mr. Sewell to do, to give a shout out, to Tim Zahn's Minari Mountains.
Minari Mountains.
And they said
It's nice.
He said that just basically the base of the mountain had already started to have work done on it, and really just the upper echelons of the mountain were left as far as nature goes.
Well, and he talks about how deliberate it was
to keep it
for every person in power to have kept that along, to have safeguarded it for the sake of having it.
Right. So that was just a little cool tidbit, but the Republic is doing a lot of good. It's very interesting to see. I got used to it over the course of 13 hours listening to the book, but at first I didn't trust anybody. Like the Chancellor, she would say something and I was like, what are you up to? The military, and I'd be like, I don't trust you either. But over the course of the book, it really does go to show that it's the High Republic for a reason, that everyone's working for the betterment of everyone else.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful family feel that everyone needs to be involved. The core worlds have everything they really need, but let's get stuff to the Outer Rim.
Yeah. When we talk quite a bit about now the Republic and the Jedi, let's talk a little bit about what shakes the Jedi to the core. What are the Jedi afraid of? And that is the Nihil.
Yeah. Well, I think at the end of the day, we have to remember that this book is just the beginning of a massive project. And I think it's going to end up being 3 novels and like countless junior novels and comics. So my take on it, if we're going full spoilers to the very last chapter,
let's just introduce him a little bit.
Okay.
So we haven't really talked about it. So Marchion Ro.
I don't think that the Nihil themselves are what the Jedi fear.
Okay. So we got Marchion Ro. He's like the main villain. They call him the Eye of the Nihil.
Yeah.
And so essentially what that means is the real power that the Nihil have is in their ability to appear and disappear at will via their greater understanding of hyperspace, via a little old lady who is something of an anomaly in the entire timeline of all of Star Wars.
Yeah, her name is Mari Santeca.
Yeah.
And I was very interested if the Santeca family is the same as Lor Santeca, who is the old man at the beginning of The Force Awakens who says, "This will begin to make things right."
Yeah, that might be confirmed later on. I don't think we have anything telling
We have
us
no
one way or the other
confirmation
right
yet. But Mari Santeca somehow has the ability to see. It's very much like what the Chiss have in Skywalkers, where she's able to see paths.
Well, and it's a little bit different in that they're doing it via the Force. I think she literally visually sees the different paths that you can take while in hyperspace.
Yeah.
I think it describes that she sees it just visually. She can navigate it differently.
Yeah. And so it's really strange because she can be plugged. It's Star Wars. She can be plugged into a ship, and the way that her mind knows where to go, she can navigate a ship.
Yeah.
And there's a part of the book where it talks about how if people were going, vertically, she's able to move horizontally. She can move laterally, I guess is the correct term.
Yeah. Well, and it describes one of the ships
doesn't
as being
require
basically
hyperlanes.
perpendicular to a hyperlane, going straight across it.
Yeah. Which you would think it would be like, something landing in the river and going downstream. She's
Yeah.
just shooting across. They didn't really explore or
She's
explain
really,
why.
really, basically National Lampoon after he daggum greases up that pan,
Yeah.
shooting all the way across the highway.
And she's super old, and she's been kidnapped
Everybody else
for...
is staying on the mountain.
This is her third generation of Ro. Because you had
I think.
Marcion and his father and the grandmother before that.
Okay.
And she was just a little girl when she was kidnapped. And so it's been so long, and she's so old that she doesn't really even remember
I think
being kidnapped.
she's like roughly 100 years old.
Yeah.
And so she's basically the secret weapon of Marcion Ro.
Good one.
They're very secretive about.
And that's how they get way
her.
out west. Way out west.
Yeah, exactly. And so
That's how they get to Green River. Let's do this again.
Yeah. And so underneath the eye, but kind of not underneath, it's very interesting the way that this organization is set up. So they have what's called the Rule of Three.
Right.
So there are 3 main crime bosses within the Nihil that are not Marcion Ro.
That are called Tempests.
They're called Tempests.
Or
And
Tempest
so,
Runners or something like that.
Yeah. Under them are like basically factions that break down. I think it is the Storm and then Cloud and then Strike. Mm-hmm. From most powerful to least powerful.
And their whole thing is that they're a storm.
Yeah, and I think a Storm has their own ship, and then a Cloud is just kind of like a lieutenant, and the Strike
It's a
is
group
just
within
a
the
recruit.
ship.
And then so we have 3 of those, and they're each unique, in the way that they operate and in the type of person that they recruit to fit in with their organization.
So you have Lorna D.
She is a Twi'lek. I believe she's described as being like emaciated and pale, and I think she paints like white stripes on herself, something like that.
And so she's very self-absorbed, and her ship is called the Lorna D.
And she's interesting because she is not self-absorbed in this. I mean, she is, but she's very cards close to her vest.
Yeah.
She always
Well, it's
speaks
interesting
last,
because they all work together, but none
they're
of
all
them
looking out for number one.
likes the other, really.
Yeah, and the way that the organization is set up, basically everybody gets a hit of every job.
Yeah.
So they only stick together because it's best for them.
Okay, so hear me out.
They don't like each other.
They said the rule of 3, right? And there's 3 factions, but the Eye also gets a third.
Yeah,
So how many thirds are there?
all of them.
You see what I'm saying? That kind of
The rule
confused me a
three,
little bit.
Josiah.
I understand.
It's all 3s.
But who... Okay, so
You ever
if,
see the movie 23?
if the Eye
with Jim
gets...
Carrey?
Yes, I got
It's
it.
that.
If the
It's all
Eye
3s.
gets a third, does the captain get a third, and then the captain's crew gets a third? Is that how that works?
It doesn't say anybody else's break except for the Eye,
Okay.
who I imagine is wealthy beyond belief.
Yeah. So, Lorna D is a character.
But he only gets a third of the jobs that they use paths for.
Correct. Yes.
So if they have just like their own operation that they don't need his help for, they get to keep all that.
Right. Secondly, you have Pan Ada.
Yeah, Pan Ada is a Doatan,
Yeah.
which
And
is the...
if you've seen The Force Awakens, when they're in Maz's castle, there's a giant, looks like a Trandoshan kind of, but they have the
way bigger.
two chin spikes.
Yeah,
And in Force Awakens, the guy just goes, "Bleh."
yeah.
But very, very huge characters. And so he's one of those. And then thirdly, you have Kassav. And Kassav is the mouthiest, most aggressive, most annoying son of a gun. He's a weak way, and he's always the one that says something first. He always mouths off. He's probably the most selfish in the sense that he's so selfish, he'll ruin a good thing for the sake of...
And he's the most initially aggressive. He's definitely the most...
He's short-sighted.
Shoot first, ask questions later.
Yeah, he's very short-sighted.
He's not... He just seems uncouth. He's not precise in what he does. There's no order to it. It's just Hulk smash. You know what I
He's
mean?
very much like... anytime you see a pirate movie, there's like pirates who are just crazy, and then there's the boss pirate who's like, shut up, you scallywags, and they actually have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy underneath that guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have a plan, but he feels like he should be in charge. And so those 3 guys, or those 3 characters, are responsible for creating this crazy faction, the Nihil. And the crazy thing is, they don't know. The only one that knows where the paths come from is the Eye, Marchion. And
he safeguarded it because if they knew, they would just kill him.
Yeah, they would just kill him because they just need the old lady.
Well,
but
and the other
she has
thing
a finite number of paths that she can see because she's so old.
Yeah.
She's not limited by what she can see, but her time is running out, basically.
Right. And so he's got a database that he's just stockpiling those bad boys away. And then the other thing is that the other 3 have an army basically under each of them, and he's just shooting it from the hip.
He's just him.
Yeah, it's him. It's his ship, and I think he's got like something of a small contingent of very gnarly assault droids.
Yeah, he has droids, and he has a doctor to take care of the old lady,
who's a Chadra fan and useless from the sound of it.
And so it's interesting. I'll tell you what I think they fear, because that was the big thing. Yeah. The thing that they fear, which was the big, what do the Jedi fear? That's what we said when we sat down. There's a moment in close to the very beginning of the book where it talks about Buryaga could sense fear in others, but it was foreign feeling to him because Jedi weren't supposed to feel fear. It talks about Bell trying to push fear out of his mind of falling, you know? So there's this vision that Homeboy has at the end of the book where...
Elzar Man.
Yeah, Elzar has a vision of just their Jedi being tortured and they're in pain and they are running for their lives. And
not retreating, but running. That's the big deal.
Yeah, they're not retreating to get it, let's regroup. It's they're scattering, basically. Yeah. And it says that he realizes the thing that shakes him to the core is in their eyes he sees fear. And whatever, it's almost like
the only thing left to fear is fear itself.
Yeah, it's kind of I think what they're most afraid of is fear. That's the thing that they're trying to avoid. And there's something that Marchion Ro is up to that will cause this fear to take place. Yeah. I kept waiting for a big reveal like, it's the Nihil because my granddad was Darth Nihilus. I didn't know. I kept waiting for something crazy.
No, I thought he was cool. I liked the way that Mark Thompson did his voice.
Yeah,
very atypical villain voice. It almost seemed like American Werner Herzog inspired.
Yeah. So we're right at 45 minutes. We're getting ready to wrap this thing up. But what do you think is next from where we're at right now at the end of this? Because the very end of this kind of goes into where the comic picks up.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get more local skirmishes further on in the comic series. I think we're just gonna get introduced to kind of little things going on here and there in the galaxy. I think the main storylines are gonna take place in the novel for the most part, because the characters that were in the comics are like not at all talked about. You know what I mean? I think we're gonna have that little sideline with Skier because we had the cliffhanger ending with Skier that we didn't get a resolution to.
Right.
But I like that Marchion Ro says he doesn't have plans because those can get, they can easily fall apart. He has goals, which can be accomplished any number of ways.
It's pretty good.
Thanks.
Yeah, he's very, I was telling Samuel, he's kind of like a more schemy Kylo Ren character.
He's like if Kylo Ren and Snoke had a baby and also that baby didn't have the Force.
Yeah.
He's very schemy.
He's...
The whole book, he looks like it's kind of out of his control and he's just trying to grapple it, and then you find out that he was large and in charge the entire time.
I am the one that crashed... I can't remember the ship's name. But like all that stuff... the moment where he kills Kassav, and is like, I think you killed my dad, and if it wasn't you, I'll kill the other two later.
Yeah. Or he bested him in hand-to-hand combat. He threw a vibro star and cut off most of his hand, and then when they were leaving the meeting, he goes, "Don't forget your hand."
Yeah, it's a very interesting sounding character.
Pretty ballin'. We don't know what species he is, by the way.
Yeah,
if you're
he's
wondering.
gray-skinned. That's all we know.
Gray skin and black eyes. All the way black.
So he's probably a demon. But it's very interesting. I don't know what's next.
If you're thinking something along the lines of the... what's Rook? What are they called?
A Nogri?
Yeah, he has hair, so he's not a Nogri.
Yeah. No, he's too tall, too.
He's too tall as well.
It's very interesting. I don't know what's next. but something's coming down the pike, and he knows.
Dude, he is in charge, bro.
He knows something.
Yeah.
And he's got a backstory that I know that they barely just told you existed. That's probably going to come into play. That the Jedi failed his people, or something along those lines.
Yeah, he's got some sort of secret weapon.
Yeah. And I don't understand what his goal is, because he doesn't care about the plundering.
Dude, I don't know.
Because there's a point in the beginning of the book where he's like, "Are you enjoying the party? It's a big party. I wouldn't say it's a good party." So he doesn't
big party.
He doesn't really care about that side of things.
He's funny, dude.
So he wants to grow his little empire, because the main speech he is we're going to keep plundering forever. I have unlimited plans. I have unlimited blah, blah, blah. And I guess he's just working that little old lady to death.
And everyone is a tool. He doesn't care about anybody, dude.
So what is his...
he called you a tool, bruh.
He has... Okay, so she has limited life.
Yeah.
Is he just like working her to death, as many paths as she can find, and he's just going to put it in a Palm Pilot?
He's got that database. It's described as having like thousands and thousands of paths.
And so as long as
he makes
keep
it
that bad
sound
boy
like
on
he's basically
shuffle,
got most of the galaxy planned out right now.
he's got it mapped out.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's why he's
Man.
been working her so hard, and I think he's been letting the others kind of
One thing that was
helm.
really cool was that he obviously captures Master Greatstorm, and he...
Jedi Knight.
Yeah, but they said when you're talking to a Jedi, you can call him Master, because you don't want to offend him by saying something that is below them. But
Master Buryaga.
it was very interesting. Yeah, it was really interesting.
Anakin's just a Padawan learner.
Dude, that's like the worst line. That's the one that gets me. It's interesting because he says that his ability to use the Force is diminished when there's great pain and suffering around him. Mm-hmm. So he keeps him basically in the middle cell of like a prison. He keeps him in a prison surrounded by people that are just being tortured at random. No reason for it other than they're a tool to keep him weak. Freaking brilliant. That's pathological, dude. And he needs the Jedi for something.
I'm thinking he plans to break them and maybe use them as it's either a revenge thing because they failed his people, and it says something about him thinking about getting away from his past but not successfully doing it. So it's either a revenge thing and he wants the Jedi to fall, or he wants to systematically imprison Jedi so that he can use them to basically map out new paths.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is my guess.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because there's that moment in the Thrawn books where Vader basically takes hold of the ship and uses the Force to navigate stuff.
Mm-hmm. The Skywalker. So
that's very interesting. But yeah, who knows what's next? It was really great. If you
excited.
are a reader, pick up this book because it's a great read. If you're more of a listen while you drive person, it is on Audible.
And Mark Thompson big time stepped up his game for this particular novel. He kills it.
Yeah, very, very good job. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions about the story and you're just like, I'm not going to read it, I have a question, ask us. Reach out to us on Instagram. Please share this video, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys next week. Remember, may the Force be with you.
And High Republic or not, the only family you have here is me.
We'll see you next week.